Question 206. A purchase money mortgage refers to a mortgage on the property given by the buyer to the seller, with the purchase price paid off in installments by the buyer. B. Wraparound mortgage. C. Loan taken on several separate properties. D. Loan bundled together on an automobile, a rare coin collection in a new home. Correct answer is a mortgage on the property given by the buyer to the seller, with the purchase price paid off in installments by the buyer. A wraparound mortgage is a type of seller financing where a new loan wraps around an existing loan. Loan taken on several separate properties describes a blanket mortgage. Loan bundled together on an automobile, a rare coin collection in a new home is not a recognized type of mortgage. Loan bundled together on an automobile, a rare coin collection in a new home is not a recognized type of mortgage. Real estate loans are secured by real property. Purchase money mortgage specifically refers to a mortgage where the seller of a property acts as the lender to the buyer. The buyer gives the seller a mortgage as part of the purchase transaction. It is most often used when the buyer cannot obtain traditional financing. Question 207. A single mother with 2 young children is working with a broker to find an affordable home. The buyer informs the broker that since she does not have enough money to make the down payment on a house, she intends to obtain the funds by getting an auto title loan and dipping into her nest egg of emergency cash. In this situation, the broker should A. Tell the buyer he can no longer represent her. B. Advise the buyer to carry out her plan because real estate values are guaranteed to rise. C. Advise the buyer regarding the potential problems with this kind of financing. D. Say nothing to the buyer regarding this kind of financing. Correct answer is C. Advise the buyer regarding the potential problems with this kind of financing. While the broker may have concerns, simply terminating the relationship is not the best course of action. Real estate values are not guaranteed to rise, and advise the buyer to carry out her plan would be unethical and irresponsible advice. Say nothing to the buyer would be a breach of the broker's fiduciary duty to the client. The broker has an obligation to inform their client of potential risks. Saying nothing to the buyer could also imply the broker agrees with her financing plan. A real estate broker has a duty to act in the best interests of their client. This includes providing sound advice and disclosing any potential risks associated with the transaction. Auto title loans often carry extremely high interest rates, which could put the buyer at significant financial risk. Using emergency cash reserves for a down payment could leave the buyer vulnerable to unforeseen expenses. A broker should advise the buyer about the potential negative financial consequences and suggest exploring alternative financing options. Question 208. The kind of tenancy that occurs when there is an agreement to lease, but without a specific term of duration, is called an A. Tenancy at will. B. Tenancy at sufferance. C. Uncertain tenancy. D. Tenancy of indefiniteness. Correct answer is a tenancy at will. Tenancy of indefiniteness is not a legal term. Uncertain tenancy might sound fitting. This is also not a legal term. Tenancy at sufferance occurs when a tenant remains in possession of a property after their lease has expired, without the landlord's permission. Tenancy at will exists when a tenant occupies a property with the landlord's permission, but without a fixed term. It can be terminated by either the landlord or the tenant at any time, with proper notice. Question 209. State sales taxes that are assessed on fixtures in the sale of a business opportunity are A. Paid by the buyer to the seller, along with the purchase price. B. Sent by the seller to the Board of Equalization. C. Paid prior to the certificate of clearance being issued. D. All of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. A. Paid by the buyer to the seller, along with the purchase price. When fixtures are sold as part of a business opportunity, they are generally subject to sales tax. The buyer is typically responsible for paying this sales tax to the seller. B. Sent by the seller to the Board of Equalization. The seller then acts as a collector and remits the sales tax to the appropriate state agency, which in California is the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, formerly the Board of Equalization. C. Paid prior to the certificate of clearance being issued. A certificate of clearance is important in business opportunity sales to verify that all applicable sales taxes have been paid. This is done to protect the buyer from any outstanding tax liability that the seller may have. Therefore, the sales tax must be paid prior to that certificate being issued. Question 210. A property manager and a property owner are engaged in what kind of agency? A. Dual. B. Specific. C. General. D. Both A and C. Correct answer is C. General. Dual agency occurs when an agent represents both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction, or both the landlord and the tenant. A specific agency is limited to a single act or transaction. A general agent is authorized to conduct a series of transactions over a continuous period of time on behalf of the principal. A property manager is typically given broad authority to manage the property, including tasks like collecting rent, hiring contractors, and handling day-to-day operations. Question 211. Owner Oscar provided broker Bruce with a listing to sell his home. Oscar informed Bruce that the neighborhood high school was rated among the 5 best in the city and asked for that fact to be included in the listing. Bruce didn't think the school's ranking was that good, checked the educational rankings himself and discovered that the school was actually rated dead last. Bruce showed the house to a family with 2 young children, the Flints, who inquired about the local elementary school, but not the high school. Should Bruce mention the high school's poor evaluation to the Flints and other prospective purchasers? A. No, it is the responsibility of buyers to inform themselves of pertinent information regarding the neighborhood. B. No, because it would probably impair Bruce's chances to close the sale. C. Yes, because the broker has a listing from a different owner, in a neighborhood with better schools, that he can try to sell to the purchasers. D. Yes, because it is a material fact. Correct answer is D. Yes, because it is a material fact. A material fact is any information that could significantly affect a buyer's decision to purchase a property. The quality and ranking of local schools are generally considered material facts, especially for families with children. Real estate brokers have a duty to disclose material facts to all parties involved in a transaction. Even if the buyers didn't specifically ask about the high school, the broker has a responsibility to disclose this information. The fact that the seller specifically asked for it to be included in the listing makes it even more important to disclose the correct information. Question 212. A broker accepts a prospective buyer's deposit and deposits it in his trust account. The broker also keeps his personal funds in the account to pay his office expenses. The broker is guilty of A. Conversion. B. Commingling. C. Accounting mistake. D. This is not considered wrong. Correct answer is B. Commingling. Conversion is the illegal use of another person's funds for one's own purposes. While commingling can lead to conversion, the specific act the question describes is commingling. Commingling refers to the act of mixing personal funds with client funds. Real estate trust accounts are specifically for holding client funds separate from the broker's own money. Keeping personal funds in the trust account, even for office expenses, violates this principle. Question 213. To be valid, a lease must include all of the following, except A. Description of the premises. B. Terms commencement and expiration dates. C. Tenant's credit history. D. Names of landlord and tenant, who have legal capacity to contract. Correct answer is C. Tenant's credit history. A lease is a contract, and like any contract, it must contain certain essential elements to be valid. These typically include: the property being leased must be clearly identified. The duration of the lease must be defined. The parties involved must be clearly identified and legally able to enter into a contract. Along with the lease being in writing, the parties' mutual agreement to the terms, and mention of the rent, as well. While a landlord may request and review a tenant's credit history as part of the screening process, it is not a legal requirement for the lease itself to be valid. The credit history is used to make a decision if a landlord wishes to rent to a tenant, and is not a part of the lease itself. Question 214. Which forms are required to be completed before an offer can be submitted? A. Credit application. B. Agency disclosure. C. Open listing. D. Title report. Correct answer is B. Agency disclosure. A credit application is part of the financing process, which typically occurs after an offer has been accepted. An open listing is a type of listing agreement between a seller and a broker. It's an agreement between the seller and the agent, not something required before submitting an offer. A title report is typically obtained during the escrow process, after an offer has been accepted. In most states, including California, real estate agents are legally required to disclose their agency relationship to all parties in a transaction. A form called Disclosure Regarding Real Estate Agency Relationship must be completed by a listing agent. This disclosure must be made before any offer is presented to ensure that all parties understand who the agent represents. Question 215. Which of these kinds of loans would probably require the lowest amount of settlement costs? A. VA. B. CalVet. C. Conforming. D. There are no differences in closing costs between these loans. Correct answer is B. CalVet. VA loans have some fee restrictions, but there are still certain required costs. Conforming loans, those that meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines, have standard closing costs, which can vary. The CalVet loan program, offered by the California Department of Veterans Affairs, is known for its relatively low closing costs. There are no escrow charges for CalVet loans. This is because the state itself acts as the lender, and they often streamline the process and reduce certain fees.